Well, this is my second attempt at making this particular video. The one I made this morning, I was told from on high, is too confronting for to put on my channel. I don't know what's more confronting than there is no world. I mean, the central lesson, of course, in Miracles attempts to teach us that there is no world. You're in eternity now, dreaming this whole thing. Everything you see around you is an illusion, and all of your attempts to verify yourself through the external references of the temporal association of your own particulars is nothing more than the denial of truth within you, which is what you are actually looking for, not out there. Jesus would have said 2,000 years ago, the kingdom of heaven is within. Seek where it is, and there you'll find it. But it's hard to, very difficult, in fact, to seek where it is when the mind is so busy with a lot of nonsense and that internal monologue, which is just going on 24/7, that I pay attention to, you pay attention to the schematic of time and space of the human experience pays attention to, because that's the programming, is impossible to break away from without the miracle. You can't not listen to it without a miracle, which is why it's a course in miracles. The nature of time and space is that it's a complete enclosure of a specific part of the mind, which is the activating and choosing agent of spirit, of the soul, rather. And as an entire encapsulation, as an entire kingdom, as an entire realm, or as an entire paradigm of thought, we call that ego, and everything within the framework of time and space is ego. Everything here is symbolic of an idea of myself as either being this physical thing that I think I am as a Dave, or as being spirit. But the ego always speaks first. That part of the mind that's looking out there always speaks first. And the spirit, the part of your mind which is holy and has that connection with holiness, ego doesn't, because it doesn't know what that is. But that part of your mind that still has that connection with holiness just simply waits patiently, because that's its virtue, I guess. And you have free will, or an idea of free will, not that there is actually such a thing. But within the framework of time and space, you're being allowed to get the results of your own thinking, so you can make new choices, and make those choices based on your own decisions to do so. Not because I say so, or because A Course in Miracles says so. Otherwise, you're not really digging into where it is that the prompt for making those decisions comes from you, and not from something outside of yourself, such as me. Right? My purpose is to make myself redundant to you as a teacher, and to give you as much of my learning as possible, so that you can not only begin to teach this yourself and give it away in whatever form, whether verbally, artistically, poetically, through dance, through working at IBM, through working at Hungry Jack's or McDonald's. It doesn't really matter. It's the love within yourself that you're discovering as you forgive yourself for the temporal arrangements of your own human experience, that flows back in, that you are able to give away, because suddenly you realize you have a true purpose, and you're able to begin to connect with it. Now, the post, I wanted to make this video about special relationships, because I put up a post yesterday on my Facebook, which is Dave Fair, DAVEPHARE. And the nature of special relationships, I mean, if you look at the whole idea of the whole kingdom or the realm of time and space, the paradigm of time and space on the physical front, it represents an attempt to verify an idea through the potential of ongoing cause and effect relationships, to verify an idea of separation from source, where all of a sudden you find yourself in the physical realm. Where am I? What's this all about? What's the meaning of life? It's not 42, but I bet there is one. And you end up watching a video like this, and then you begin to make changes and things begin to change. Or maybe you turn this video off and it's terrifying. And but the nature of all relationships initially, until you repent, until you turn around, until you find salvation for yourself in your own way, not through religion, not in a church, not whatever. Although if you do it that way, that's fine. But there's no specific way. There is only your way, and you are the way. You're it. You are what you're looking for. So, and I could take that further, but I won't for this particular video. But when you begin to then devote yourself and discipline yourself and give your life and will to God to guide according to a higher perspective on life, which will bring you much more peace and love and harmony in your relationships, you begin to have to look at those relationships, and you begin to realize that the initial purpose for the external acquisition of relationships, or let's say special relationship, this is my special person, my significant other, my whatever else people call these things these days, my partner, wife, husband, whatever. The initial purpose for all of those things is to support the notion of denial, support the notion of separation, and they're used as a kind of a weapon, right? In order to keep somebody else out there that you can reflect off as somebody else, so that you remain asleep in this dream of believing that that person is different to you. And the more you get to know that person and the more you get to realize how different they are, the more that separation becomes real to you, not to me particularly now, but I hope you get what I'm trying to say. So those relationships are used to bolster separation as an idea of having validity in my own mind, let's say, and rather than to be used for an idea of harmony and coming together and healing, etc., which doesn't really occur until the whole relationship, the whole world, the whole universe, the whole everything is given as a devotional, participative activity to the higher realms of the celestial order of things, so that I think there's somebody here, so that you can begin to get the witnesses to a whole new way to see, think, hear, smell, touch, taste, etc., and beyond all of that. So when I begin to look at my relationships, initially I engage in those relationships because I feel empty inside. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what the meaning of life is. I don't know anything about myself. I'm like a blank, and I add to my character and to my identity as I go along, and I use particular relationships and references from those relationships to develop a personality and all of this sort of stuff, and that becomes then part of the identity package that I claim for myself and represent myself by out there in time and space. And hopefully by the time we reach maturity at the age of about 30 or something, for men that usually takes to be about 40, hopefully by then I've got a fair idea of what the world's about, and am able to navigate and manage my affairs within the framework of the world. And of course, once that happens, familiarity breeds contempt, and you begin to look around, you wonder what's next, and everything seems to fall away quite quickly as an idea of this fulfills me and that fulfills me. And you'll find if you're a good consciousness in denial, you'll find that you're able to skip from one relationship to another one to another one. I thought this one would be the right one, and now it's not fulfilling me anymore, and I'm going to get rid of that one. And here's another one, and I'll try this one and whatever. But eventually salvation comes and you realize that the purpose of those relationships is not what you thought it was. The purpose of those relationships that have been given to you by a divine source, a divine overseeing kind of agency that we call the Holy Spirit, is to help you learn within the framework of the universal learning classroom, which is what it is, and the lesson repeats until it's learned, to help you learn what you are by at first presenting something that you're not, to get you to question your reality. Well, this doesn't feel right to me. That doesn't feel right to me. Why am I here? What is the point? All my relationships fail, etc., etc. And hopefully when you ask those sorts of questions, you'll finally get to a place where you're fed up with trying to answer them for yourself. I see that I've been running my own show and all my hubris gets me nothing, and all of a sudden I don't know what to do anymore. I'm just sick of all this. I can't bear any more heartbreak. Oh, woe is me. And you stop. You just stop and you let something else happen. Now, if you're in a relationship already that's a special relationship, which is fundamentally somebody that you hate, right? You love them because you can hate them and you can project all your shit onto them, and you can do, instead of put your finger there, you can point out, oh, my wife or my partner or my whatever did this, and therefore I'm justified in my anger, and therefore they cheated on me, and I can now feel good about getting rid of them, or whatever it is. You know, there's always going to be these scenarios, these ups and downs, because that's life. Everything's always changing. And no matter how good anything is on the surface, underneath there is always this emptiness, this yearning within to be fulfilled from a higher source. But of course, you don't know that initially. You don't know that you're looking for God. You don't know you're looking for the truth of yourself. And so there's this flailing kind of commitment to looking out there and trying to find the perfect person, which of course there isn't one. There is no such thing as soulmates or twin flames or any of that stuff. There's only your own reflection of the state of mind that you seem to be cohabitating with, being presented to you as an opportunity for change. And you're either going to see it as that, or you're going to try and maintain what you think it's for in your own mind, and you'll get the results of your own thinking, which is that you'll be back here watching this video again. So if you're in a special relationship with somebody that you absolutely hate, and remember, the idea that you would love them and they're special to you is what hatred is, although it's an embossed version of hatred. It's an embossed version of murder. It's an embossed version of I'm here to kill, I'm here to die, I'm here to suffer, because that's the rod, the weapon, the finger that you wave against God, in an attempt to make God fallible, and therefore God must be something else, and you're this something else, therefore the void and the separation from God, rather than realizing your wholeness and the idea that, of course, you're doing this to yourself. This is a dream. It's an illusion of separation, and all the fearful nature of the relationships you find yourself in is designed to be nothing more than representing that original choice to be separate, which, of course, when we begin upon the healing path, we rededicate or repurpose that original choice to a new choice. We choose again for salvation. We choose again for God. Pardon my. And as we choose differently, or as we begin to choose for God, without having to know what that is, we leave this small little gap. Right, the little gap, it talks about it in the Course in Miracles, this little gap, where this holy instant can occur. And it's like, well, I want to choose for God in this situation because I see that all my other choices, every time it comes around again with these relationships, they don't work. There's nothing. At first it's great, there's this honeymoon period, it's fantastic, and then that wears off and it's just the come day, go day of cohabitating and being codependent, and it's kind of like, that's not what I want. I want this excitement and this vibratory passion that was there at the start, the chemistry, and you want to keep that chemistry fresh. But of course, familiarity breeds contempt. You can't do that. Everything here in the world changes, and you change along with it, no matter how much, as the body, of course, no matter how much you think you can hold it all together and just keep your own little nest egg the way you want it. You can't. You end up coming back for another lifetime, another cycle around the sun, and do it all again. And here I am again as an idea, representing something else, representing an alternative to that, where all of a sudden your mind begins to expand to a bigger picture of what self is, rather than this limited idea of what I seem to be presenting through this symbol of a Dave, like you would present through the symbol of your avatar. And all of a sudden we realize that life is whole, life is one, and that I'm one with all things here. The stars, the moon, the mountains, the trees, all of that. The whole illusion, the whole thing is what I am as mind. The body, the little receptive mechanism or the vehicle that I seem to have within the framework that seems to be separated from it, is simply a response mechanism in order for the mind to be able to make decisions about itself, whether it wants to see itself as small and limited to this vessel, or whether it wants to begin to participate with an idea of itself as being bigger than the sum of its parts, which also goes beyond the sum of its parts when you realize and allow for that which you cannot corrupt and cannot be corrupted within you as divine, to be part and parcel of how it is you figure yourself in and enter yourself in with the idea of what it is you are as all things. It's pretty simple. So don't throw away that special relationship. If you're in a relationship with someone or something and it's all going to shit, and I'm spiritual and my partner's not spiritual and it's not working out, we seem to be corrosive, and it's a, what do you call it, toxic relationship, and it's going bad, or all that sort of thing, don't throw it away. It's a perfectly useful learning tool, okay? You just have to be willing to take on board that, I can sneeze again, that there's another level attributable to that relationship which is beyond what you can understand, but which you can learn about through being willing to understand, but not based on your own interpretations of things, right? Step back, ask for help, ask for the healing of your mind that is seeing the error in the relationship that's making it abrasive. Right? Step back, ask for the miracle. I need a miracle here. I don't know how to fix this relationship. I don't know why it's not harmonious. I don't know why my mind's so upset about this person, me person, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Any lack of perfect peace, is a lack of peace, is no peace at all. And then don't interfere. You ask for help and then don't interfere. Leave the gap, the little gap. Let God fill it. Let the Holy Spirit flow into that and change something in your heart and mind, which, because the heart is, the prayer of the heart, that's the passion, and the mind is the place of decision. You bring those two things together, you got the power and the passion right there. When they connect, when you're asking from the heart, God knows what you want before you even ask. And the whole point of this is healing. So you're asking for healing of your own mind that believes that you're separate from God, which cannot not play out in a relationship to bring you chaos, because being separate from God is what chaos actually shows up as, or is, So, use the relationship you're in. Don't chuck it out for another one. If you're going to chuck it out. But don't waste it. It's just more time going on, And so you'll find that the whole idea of your relationships is to bring them to a state of holiness, is to join in a place where there is no judgment about the relationship, but rather, in fact, what would you call it? A re-owning, or you're claiming back the projections that you've put onto the relationship, as energetic denial projected out there, because what you see in someone else is you. I don't want to admit that I'm one with all things and everything in the universe, and every idea about anything is me and my mind, my Christ mind, because that's what you are. You are the Christ mind. You are God mind creating, co-creative expression of singular reality of all things. And it's almost impossible to talk about a singular creative source through the idea of co-creation, because that implies two. But the creator and the creation is the same thing, but at the same time it's purposeful as what seems to be, I guess, two things, but it's not. It's one thing. And that's where you have to experience it for yourself, because trying to talk about it is like, well, it's like putting marbles in your mouth and trying to sing the national anthem. You just can't. So you repurpose your relationships. You give them to the Holy Spirit. You give them to that new purpose, and you dedicate and devote yourself to holding yourself accountable to the purpose for that relationship, which is to make it holy. Now, if you're doing that successfully, if you're doing that with devotion and with passion and with, everything you've got, you'll be taking responsibility for the original purpose of the relationship, which is the fulfillment and the pleasure and the idea of that satisfaction can be found out there in the world, and you'll be surrendering all of that, right? Does that mean that you might lose interest in sex? Possibly, probably, eventually, ultimately, yes. But most people, me included, I was quite perplexed initially about the idea that I would have to give up the meaning that I'd given to sex. And now if I don't have sex. I haven't had sex for 6 years, 7 years, whatever it is. But if I were to have sex, it's no different to having a cup of tea. And that might sound depressing, but then what's my goal? It's not depressing to me. It's thank God for that. Thank God I'm through all that dross and that heavy energy and that sort of down, sort of bass kind of stuff. And my mind now, yeah. You can feel that. My mind now does something that it never used to do before when I was concerned with external fulfillment, because my internal fulfillment has reconnected this sense of communication and communion with the divine, that even in this world, on this level, the part of my mind that is still in transformation and still transforming is learning to align with and cooperate with a frequency whose purpose is only good, is only healing, is only love. And that's what I feel when I open my mind like that. All I get is a sense of divinity. All I get is a sense of love, a flash of light sometimes, most of the time. But, there's nothing out there. There's no sex, there's no drugs, there's no rock and roll that compares to it. And you can't imagine it until you're actually in the experience of it. You can't imagine how, and it's like when it passes, all things come to pass, or this too shall pass. When you realize that you're going through the transition with these particular things, because you kind of you're working out your own salvation as you go along, and you're becoming very aware by putting your finger on your nose what particular aspect of the learning module that you're participating with in that relationship, i.e., this is a jealous person, I'm participating with my jealousy. That's a narcissist, I'm participating with my narcissism. That's a sexual pervert, and I'm participating with my pervertism. All of these things, it's all you. It's all I. I am this. There by the grace of God goes I. No matter what it is I judge or want to look at, and you include that in, there's this sex maniac, or there's this person that's using sex as a crutch to avoid looking at their pain, that's being used as a thing to mask over. And so many of these shifts in consciousness I've been through now over the last 26 years or so, probably more, But consciously, 26 years. Prior to that, I was kind of like stumbling and still had these moments of, I went through an incredible rite of passage with jealousy, overcoming jealousy. And it's one of my more prominent, like I remember praying about it. Heal me from this jealousy. I don't want to be jealous anymore. I don't want a relationship where that's even going to show up. And I remember that vividly prior to my illumination. Like it was one of the things that brought me to God. It was one of the catalysts. There was a bunch at the time, but cancer was the other one, and just emptiness and longing and lack and all of this sort of sense of things. But in all of those shifts in consciousness, giving up drugs and alcohol, etc., there's nothing on the other side of it. You don't feel a loss. There's no sacrifice, and including sex, you don't feel there's no sacrifice. Because all of a sudden you've realized that it's not out there what I'm looking for. I'm looking for something within me. I'm looking for some kind of reconnection with my true sense of self so that I can bring myself to a state of revelation readiness so that revelation can dawn upon my mind as to what it is I truly am and where I am forever and always as part and parcel of the divine creative source of all that is in eternity. And then move on in the journey of my soul up the frequency ladder, up the vibratory scale, like Jacob's ladder, if you want to call it, back to my singular sense of oneness. And the next level for me is this blue. Some of you guys know, you've watched a video about the blue people, but it's a much higher frequency operating level than this one. Still form, still illusion, but going onward and upward. I don't really need to talk much about that more. So those relationships are useful. Special relationships are useful. Don't lament the loss of what you think they represent to you, because that thing that you think they represent to you is actually what's keeping you in pain and suffering and death over and over and over. Everybody likes the idea of healing and like my world, I can live in a forgiven world, a better world. And it's like that idea is usually associated with giving up all the bad stuff, the stuff you don't like, But it's also because the world is dualistic, good and bad, yin and yang. You also have to give up the entirety of the world, which exists only in your mind in thought, right? According to the meaning you give it. You have to give up the good stuff as well. You can't be partially healed. You can't be partially whole. You're either completely whole or not at all. Right? So you're always like flipping it over, going back, flipping it over, going back, looking at the world, looking at God, looking at the world. It's always yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. And there's always that own agenda. I've got my own agenda about all this stuff, that stuff, and these people, those people, blah, blah, blah. And bit by bit, you sort of chip away at that iceberg until finally you put your head under the surface and there's not much left, and you feel quite confident that you can stand on the precipice and enter into that moment of terror or the void or the emptiness and transition across it. And that's a bad way to talk about it, transitioning and across it, but flip it over perhaps in your mind by the grace of God, right? Forgiveness brings you near enough that the love of God can reach down to you and raise you up to him. That's directly out of the Course. So you can get to that point of being revelation ready and actually remember what you are. And get out of this third dimensional loop. It's the only way out. The only way out is the way in. At the place in your mind you decided to fall asleep and decided to, let's say, examine the idea of the potential in separation, exactly at that point, and you've got to remember it's terrifying to approach that place, because that was the very first ever experience of change that an eternal being had. In truth, never had it all, just an illusion of having it, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't believe in the effects of your thinking. It doesn't mean that you don't give things meaning. And somewhere in your mind, you've given that point of separation or that point of potential, that the idea of looking at what separation could be, a hell of a lot of meaning, which has expanded out and plays out now as the entire realm of time and space, seemingly on a linear axis, but actually all at once, throughout all of time, all of space. It's occurring right here, right now, and the only time you're ever going to reach enlightenment or experience or the memory or have the memory of what it is you are in truth is here and now. You ready? All you got to do is say yes. Yes, Father. Yes, Lord, I want it. And don't fill in the gaps. All right? Leave the gap. Don't decide what you think that might look like, could be, whatever. Which is why I always tell people, don't go reading a whole bunch of spiritual shit. You'll just fill your mind up with gobbledygook that you've got to get rid of later. Keep it simple. Stick to the course. Even the course at the end tells you, and now forget this course. Hopefully by the time you get to the end of the workbook, you've mastered the art of letting go of conceptual association, so letting go of the idea of A Course in Miracles and finding yourself in this beautiful, open sort of pasture. I forget how Jesus talks about it in the Bible. Come and lay me down in the green grass beside the still waters or something. I've prepared a place for you. And that's a state of mind. Heaven is a state of mind. Heaven on earth is a state of mind on earth, in the world, but not of it. And that's pretty much, I mean, man, if this gets any more awesome, any more divine, any more amazing for me, as the individual particulars of this association, I think I'm going to disappear. And already did at some point. I love you guys. It's like, I'm totally grateful to every brother everywhere for all the effort they're making. And, you know, I mean, I know it's not easy. If I could jump in there into your thing and do this for you, I would, but you have to do it yourself. You have to understand the nature of time and space and how you got yourself into this pickle, so you can begin to understand how to get yourself out of the pickle that you're not actually in at all, which is kind of strange. But, you know, you can't avoid the paradox. You find yourself where your feet are. I find myself in the world. There's no point telling myself there is no world, because obviously I still believe that there is a world. I still seem to see it, etc., in the same old way. And as you go through the process of healing, you become less and less attached to it and less concerned about it. And you realize that you begin to become more in the world, but not of it. And the meaning that it once had for you as being something that offered the potential for fulfillment, to fill up that emptiness inside you, now it doesn't offer that. And that emptiness inside you, that little gap inside you, you'll become more and more willing to leave it open, to leave it clear, to not write anything on that slate, and simply to breathe and allow it to be there and to experience it fully, no matter what anxiety that might bring up. Right? All anxiety being existential, all anxiety being separation anxiety, separation from God. And I experience it, let's say, through that relationship, through this relationship, through these particular things. And I seem to be triggered anxiety by this, that, and the other. And sometimes it just shows up. I have no idea why I feel anxious. It's just energy. But remember, you're living in the resurrection. You're living 2,000 years post Jesus Christ doing his thing. Put your fingers here, Thomas, in the holes. And you cannot not be experiencing the vibratory frequency of that within the realm, within the domain of time and space, because that's where it happened. And every time somebody with a higher frequency than you, or someone who's done more healing work than you, who's not as dross as you, comes into your presence or even thinks about you or presents the idea of a miracle, like that, it begins to affect you. It's like Jesus says in the Course, the miracles that you perform, the miracles that you undergo, and the prayer and all of that sort of passage of healing has effects in the world that you're not even aware of. You know, perhaps the parent will not scold the child. On the other side of the world, a field of daisies begins to bloom, birds begin to sing, all this sort of stuff. Some of the stuff, if you're lucky, you'll bear witness to it, and you'll see it, and you'll be like, oh my God, I had a shift in that relationship, a shift in this relationship. And all my ideas about these people and those people, I've taken responsibility for them and accepted atonement for them in my own mind, because the sole responsibility of the miracle worker is what? To accept atonement for himself. That's it. That's all you got to do. You got one job. Don't lament the passing of the temporal associations of the things that you think you enjoy or don't enjoy. It's all going to go. At some point, you were only going to give yourself a 6-foot hole in a pine box anyway. What the heck? You don't know when that's going to be. Be about your Father's business. Get your house in order and practice forgiveness in all of your affairs. Everything, the stuff you think you like and don't like, because it's all verifying time and space out there. It's all the externalizing of an idea of false self. I'm going to accept forgiveness for myself in that, in this, in those things, in that. And I'm going to be still. I'm going to allow that forgiveness to do what it needs to do. And I'm not going to fill in the gap when it starts to happen by reaching for a stiff drink or smoking a joint or going to have sex or doing whatever else it is that I normally do to fill in that anxiety. I'm just going to draw a circle. I'm going to stand in there, breathe, let the Holy Spirit take care of the whole damn thing and have an experience. And that ought to be fun. It is for me. All right, I love you guys. Peace. And read your book, do your lessons. We're going to be starting the Zooms again this coming Monday, I think. Check in with Tina. She will put her links and contacts down below in this video, as she always does. She's a very diligent and devoted student of Christ-mindedness. Being a brother's keeper is her thing. And she's got a good little crew of helpers now. So helping her to disseminate course stuff and some of my stuff. And I've been told some of my stuff's pretty good. It's not really my stuff. It's a really, really ancient teaching that I've just rehashed through this association, just to try and give it a fresh face. All right. Peace.